what's up guys? jjmini here, and I'm going to be doing a review in place of Coffee Doug this week. Now the review I'm doing is United States of Leland. This is actually a movie that came out in 2003, and it never really got the attention it deserved. A lot of people overlooked it. It didn't get a lot of praise from the mainstream press. Rotten Tomatoes called it a muddle of morals, which is kind of the point of the movie. I don't know why you're criticizing it. But it just didn't get the praise or recognition it deserved. Eventually, 8 years later, in 2011, it gets it's gotten a cult following, I guess, between the actors blowing up like Cheadle, Ryan Gosling, Jena Malone, Kevin Spacey. It's got great actors. It was just under the radar, I guess. But 8 years later, it's picking up a little steam. People are starting to notice it. People are starting to like it too. So take that as you will. Now the plot. This movie is very reliant on characters. The movie starts off with Leland Fitzgerald, and he had just killed this boy, Ryan Pollard. And through the movie, you learn more and more and more about, the United States of Leland. Yeah, the world inside his head and how he views the world. And not only do you, get to understand more of Leland, but you learn more about the characters themselves and how they're affected, like the Pollard family. The Pollard family is, the family of the boy that was killed, and it turns out the more and more you watch, it's you just find out that Leland actually had a relationship with his family. He dated one of the daughters, the daughter Becky. So you just have this whole moral and ethical dilemma, and it's just like this very, very not confusing, but it leaves so many gray lines in between certain things that you're kind of just like, okay. That is until you watch it a few times. The more you watch it, the more it'll sink in, and the more you'll understand the motives for certain characters. You'll understand where they're coming from and where they're going. But overall, the plot, people have called this like the plot non-existent. And if I did tell you about the plot, the direction and where it goes, I would just be describing, the bare minimum. Because again, this movie is very character driven. It's very, very, it's focused on the story, the acting and the writing and the dialogue. It's not a flashy film. It doesn't have a lot of guns. There's despite there being a murder, it's very, very minimal, as you will. So as far as the plot goes, Leland spends most of his time in the juvenile facility. His teacher, Don Cheadle, or Pearl, is an aspiring writer and a teacher. So you have Don Cheadle. He takes interest in Leland. Leland starts divulging more and more information. You get flashbacks. The story kind of carries itself in the flashbacks. If there was no flashbacks at all, this movie would be non-existent. It would just be an incoherent mess. And usually flashbacks are supposed to like add a little bit, but the flashbacks just carry this movie. So pay attention there in the flashbacks and stuff like that. It does build up really well, despite being just a movie focused around a minimal setting, like 3 or 4 areas, and just focusing on one-on-one dialogue. It delves deep into the characters and how they individually it goes into the characters and tells you how frustrated they are, not with just the death of the boy, because it focuses on the Pollard family, Leland's dad, and Don Cheadle, and Leland, of course. So it shows you that the Pollard family was way more screwed up than they ever were, even before the boy getting killed. Oddly enough, for a film that opens up at the murder of a kid, of a retarded boy, that Leland kills, it doesn't really focus on that. People, maybe that's why I forgot quickly that Leland was a cold-blooded murderer, but the movie doesn't really focus on it as much as it should, I think. It kind of makes Leland he kind of looks like a saint compared to some of the things that the supporting main characters do, especially Leland's dad, who's played by Kevin Spacey. Need I say more? Kevin Spacey might actually be even more creepier and more of an asshole than Leland ever is in this film. And, you know, same for Don Cheadle, despite them, you know, having the best intentions. So it's a movie, you know, kind of based around, like, don't judge a book by its cover, but it's so much deeper than that. There's a lot of philosophical implications in this movie. There's a lot of ethical dilemmas, moral dilemmas. And don't let that, you know, don't let that throw you off. Don't let the fact that it's dialogue heavy, that it's not action oriented. It's the characters really do move this along. It's, despite having its flaws, the plot is just really good. You know, it's not that it does anything new. It's just the plot understands itself, and you might not understand the plot, but the plot understands itself fine. So if you watch it a few times, you're gonna understand it a little bit more. People have called it, again, you know, they've called it a plotless mess, or a muddle of morals. As you know, you can't look at it that way. You have to take it for what it is. It's a movie that was influenced by existential philosophy. It is, you know, it focuses on the dialogue rather than the action, and it's just overall has great presentations from many good actors. I don't think there's really more that you could say about it other than watching it. If the plot was divulged any bit more, you would lose those epiphany moments. You wouldn't be standing there with your hands in the air going, "What? How did that happen?" You know? So just take it for what it is. The plot, while non-existent, is there. And while it might be non-existent, it's solid. It's very solid. And that's my personal belief. Ask me that 2 years ago when I watched it again, probably wouldn't have said that. I just have a more understanding, I guess, of the technicalities and the intricacies of certain things like this. So 8 years later, I watched this. I was one of the few to actually watch this in the movie theaters back in 2003. So I was like a 15-year-old kid, and I was like, "What? This is so cool. It's one of those," you know, it's like those movies like Gummo and Kids and Donnie Darko and, you know, stuff like that. So as an impressionable young teen, I was just like, wow, this is, it makes me feel things, you know? So it was kind of cool in that regards. I watched it, you know, a few years later, 5, 6 years later, and I didn't like it. I couldn't sit through it. I don't know. But then I rewatched it again for this review, and I just loved it. It hit it struck a chord in me. It's very, I don't want to say relevant, but it hits a lot of, you know, points that are close to home now. I guess as I got older, you know, I started to understand the things that I felt and the things that I watched. But overall, it's just a really, really good film. It does have its flaws. The acting is kind of, for having such great actors, you'd think they would, and for a movie that's focused on dialogue and acting, you think they would kind of perfect it. There's most notably 3 or 4 scenes with Don Cheadle and Kevin Spacey, who you can just tell they mumble, kind of trip over the words. It doesn't sound right, and it kind of ruins the illusion a little bit. You know, everyone makes mistakes, but they're kind of glaringly obvious. Maybe that's just me. Maybe because I'm a theater major, so, you know, a keen sense of line delivery is, you know, it's important. And, you know, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that this movie's strongest point has flaws in it. This movie delivers, you know, like 100 minutes of perfected dialogue. It's okay to have 2 or 3 minutes where it's like, you kind of tripped over a word. So, I mean, other than that, and the music. The music is really, really good. It's got music from the Pixies, Frank Black and the Catholics, Imperial Teen. Just a really cool little quirky indie soundtrack from the early 2000s that, not that the Pixies are indie or anything, don't have my head, but, you know, it's a solid movie. I definitely give it a B+, or even, you know, just a solid B. It doesn't deserve the attention that the cult status is giving it, as in people will hail it as the best movie ever. It's not the best movie ever. It's far from it. But it's a solid movie. and I just, I really love it. So, take it for what you will. The plot could be non-existent. It could be the most deepest thing you've ever seen. The characters can be a confused mess of a whatever, but it's all there. You just have to look. You kind of have to pick through the pieces and find the best parts that make it a whole. That's actually a butchered quote from the movie, and I didn't mean to do that. But, just look into it. If you like it the first time, watch it again, okay? Because this is I hate comparing it to Fight Club, but it's got a Fight Club vibe in the sense that you just gotta watch it a few times to understand where the characters are coming from and where they're gonna be going. So, yeah, B+, United States of Leland. Buy it, watch it, rent it, Netflix it, download it. That's my review. Thanks a lot, guys.